Welcome to the Chad G Ortho OT podcast. I'm your host, Chad Guerrero. I'm an orthopedic occupational therapist, strength and conditioning coach, sports trainer, and I hold over 40 specialty certifications in manual therapy, orthopedics, and sports medicine. On this podcast, we will discuss everything orthopedic therapy, sports medicine, and more. If you're a therapist, health and fitness professional, or someone just wanting to learn more about the orthopedic and sports medicine world, then this is a podcast for you. Let's get started. Before we get started, I want to let you know that if you have an interesting case or topic that you want me to discuss, head over to my website, Chad G Ortho OT, go down to the Contact Me section, fill out that form, and let me know what you have going on or what topic that you want me to talk about on an upcoming episode. Thanks so much. Welcome to the episode of the Chad G Ortho OT podcast. I'm your host, Chad Guerrero, and today I'm going to talk about stretching. Should you stretch before you work out, before you perform, physical activities that are going to be strenuous? Should you stretch? Okay, so this has been something that, over my career, I've heard a lot of opinions on this, and this one is the one that I've stayed with the longest. And I honestly think this is the correct one, especially based off of a lot of research. And let's just talk about stretching. What happens, right? So if we hold a stretch for a certain amount of time, and for most people that is in somewhere between the 30 to 60-second range, we kind of trip this breaker or sensor, so to speak. And what happens is it's a protective mechanism in our body that keeps our tissue from tearing. So the brain picks this up and says, wait a minute, this arm is being stretched or whatever, this tissue is being stretched, and I have to relax. But, basically, because if you don't relax, then, and this is built in, right? And this actually comes from the muscle, goes to the spinal cord and goes back out to the muscle. So I said brain, but it's just all, we're all connected here, the neuro system here, right? So, and so you trip this sensor so that the muscle is relaxed, so it doesn't become torn, right? So that's something in that sustained stretching time frame. Okay, shorter duration stretches or kind of ballistic, where it's a lot of movement, fast movements, things like that. With the stretches, do not cause the tissue to deformate or become longer, right? And stretching it out. And so you say, well, wait a minute, Chad, like I need this to be stretched out before activity so I don't get hurt. Well, when I explain this, it's going to make a little more sense. Really what's best practice is, or what's advised is more of a dynamic warm up, right? So like you're doing, some sort of, arm circles, high knees, these types of things, whatever, something where you're moving versus, and then light stretches, just hold it out. Maybe it's, 10 seconds or 15 seconds, something like that, just kind of just moving around, generally warming up and moving the joints a little bit, right? So the long duration stretching, so that's your 30 seconds plus 60 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever that is better done at the end of your workout or at the end of your activity. Now, how many people do that? There's going to be some of you that are going to do your stretches and all before and after, whatever. But, after a sporting event, or, you wouldn't play golf or whatever that is, you're probably not going to go spend 10, 15 minutes stretching afterwards. I'm not saying you have to spend that long, but I'm just using that as an example. And you say, okay, well, why would I not want to stretch for longer periods of time before I work out or before I do some sort of physical activity? So think about this. If, let's say that someone's vehicle, slid off, the road was icy, whatever, and it slid off in the ditch, maybe it's muddy, whatever, and it slid off in the ditch, and you want to pull this other vehicle out. So what do? You have to get a chain or a tow strap or something like that, and you hook up to it. Now, before you pull it out of the ditch, do you take the slack out of the chain or the tow strap, or you just leave all the slack in it and just stomp the gas? Well, you're going to take the slack out first, right? Like you ease out, put a little bit of tension there, and then you start to pull. So it's the same concept with our muscles. If we relax our muscles so much that there's this slack that happens in them, and then we're performing an exercise or a functional movement or sporting movement or whatever that is, especially if it's requiring acceleration, you're going to stomp the gas basically on something that is slackened. So your chances of injury, your injury risk goes up, because our body is primed, for us when we're doing activity to kind of be on edge, ready to move, not just sitting there laxed, just like when someone's going to run, they're going to sprint. they get down in a start a ready position. They don't just stand straight up and just take off running, because right off the bat they're going to get outran by the other person who's down and ready. So it's the same concept. So if you're going to do any stretches, you're going to want to do your short duration stretches, or really more of a dynamic warm up again, jumping jacks or arm circles, or whatever that is. Just kind of make a combination of all of it for a few minutes before you work out, and not this long static stretching before, because there is research that also supports that you lose some muscle power, muscle strength by doing that. You would never have a power lifter that would go and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, and then in a powerlifting competition and meet, like stretch and then go lift. They're going to be temporarily weaker, and that's very proven in the research. And so you want to make sure, number one, so that you're as strong as can be during your activities and during your lifts and all that. And then number two, to reduce your chance of injury as much as you can by not holding out those long stretches beforehand. So anyway, just a really brief podcast on that. And it's been asked a lot. I got asked that again the other day, and the person that asked me, when I gave them the answer, they didn't really like the answer. And I'm like, well, number one, yes, there is some bias because it's some of my preference, because anecdotally I've seen that over the years and with my experience. And then also it's very well published in the research that's a general consensus of most health and fitness professionals and medical professionals that are trained to understand that. I mean, that's generally the way that would go. So anyway, you guys can head over to my website, chadgeorthot.com. I have links to all of my social media platforms there. I also have tip pages, videos for clinicians, videos for patients that you can watch there. And I'm kind of in the process of redoing the website, so it'll be a little different. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate all the support, and you guys have an awesome day. This podcast is brought to you by Guerrero Rehabilitation, setting the bar for rehabilitative and sports medicine care.